Michella. How are you?
Hi, Shannon. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here with you today. Will you tell us about your relationship with the water?
Absolutely. It's a very long and wonderful relationship, but like with all relationships, we do have ups and downs. Um, and it's not like we ever made a formal commitment, but there is a commitment
Hmm.
to the water.
Where did it begin for you?
Well, as far as learning to swim, my mom. This was in the Philippines. My mom was an Olympic swimmer, very well known Olympic swimmer in the Philippines. She and her three younger sisters were known as the Von sisters, and so everybody knew them in the Philippines, being a small country. And she was one of the first four Filipino women to go to the Olympics. So that
Oh
was
my
pretty cool.
gosh.
So, needless to say, we were always in and around the water after that. And, you know, during that time, going to one Olympics was, definitely a big deal versus what you see today. Because she could have gone to number two or number three, but she decided, it's time to have children, get married and all that. Um, so I'm the youngest of three um, children that she had, and we were always at the pool. And I remember my brother and my sister, they're 4 and 5 years older than me, respectively. They were working out and they would go to the swim meets while I was in the other pool with my swim coach, Mr. OBL. I still remember his name, but he scared me because he had like a missing ring finger, and I would like focus on that. But it was probably why I just swam because I wanted. He was so kind and so encouraging. I still remember, him just saying, we're going to make it across the pool and being so encouraging, and that's where I learned. Um, and it was all good, good memories of that. Um, but also being in the Philippines, our vacations or weekends were spent in the beach, with extended family, aunts and uncles, Lola and Lola, which are our grandparents. And, we'd all be there with cousins. And, my mom would take me, I remember just being held by her in the ocean. And I remember feeling sand on my feet. Like, oh, what's that? And, it was I called it the monster, but it was kind of a fun monster. Um, but I remember a wave coming over us, and who knows how big that wave was, but when you're little, you're like, oh, it's a big wave. Um, but so we'd go to the beach, and swim in the ocean. Well, I'd be held because I was still little. But then we moved to California when I was age 7, and we'd go to the beach, but because my mom was not familiar, it's all new territory for her, coming from the Philippines. And we'd go to the beach, but we couldn't get in the water. We couldn't,
Mm.
it was cold, but this is also Northern California. Who knows, safety. My mom was always she's always very safety, or either very safety conscious or very nervous, either one. Um, but we, at the age of 9, this was up in Sacramento. My sister had joined the swim team. I'm like, gosh, I want to do what big sister did. So I wanted to join too. But my mom was always nervous. She always felt like I couldn't handle myself in the water.
Hmm.
And, she was like, she's just like, I wasn't sure, especially in the deep end. I'm like, Mom, I begged her. And finally she let me join. And it was great. I just, learned how to, just learned all the strokes, learned how to swim. And the one thing it's funny because the memory that sticks out the most is learning how to do butterfly, how the timing is and putting it all together. And one day it just happened. And I'm like, woohoo. And then from then on out, I became a butterflyer.
Oh
And
wow.
then
Nice.
200 fly
Wow.
was my event. So throughout high school swim competitively. We did one open water swim up in Folsom Lake. And, I was kind of neutral about it. I didn't know whether I liked it or didn't like it, but it was cool that we got out and swam in the open water. It wasn't, nobody knew whether it was a thing back then or not. As the coach just wanted something different. Um, and we did it just that once. And then, I swam all through high school and then went to college, UC San Diego. And they were D3 at the time. And I walked on and swam for UCSD. And that was a lot of fun because I didn't really know what it was like to swim D1, but I always heard it was much more rigorous. And so D3 was perfect for me because it really balanced academic and, being able to be on a swim team that, still gave it, we gave it our all. We competed, but we had fun. Without the pressure of going however many workouts, D1 teams go.
Had you ever envisioned a future for yourself without swimming? Like, was there ever a question in your mind, like, should I go swim in college or not?
I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really, the knowledge base was very limited. We didn't have, the access to, the internet back then where we could find out what was happening. You just get there and you inquire and you ask and, you know, um, and it's like, oh, I found out they had a swim team. And
So you were planning to go to college and maybe not swim, but then you found out they had a
yeah,
swim team. Okay. Okay. Cool.
found a swim team. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And it was great because you make friends, and it was a great way to. And I was right in there. There was no question whether I could make it or not, just because we all came kind of from all different backgrounds. It was fun, and um, went to swim meets and all that, and competed and in a nice, it was fairly new pool at the time. And then our coach took us out and swam, in La Jolla shores.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. I was like, wow, this is cool. Swimming in the ocean and, all together. So you felt, fairly safe. And, but, we didn't do it on a regular basis. I kept wanting to go back, but I didn't, I wanted to go with somebody. And, but we were all very caught up with school and with swimming in the pool, and didn't get much of a chance to just like venture on my own. We'd go and play in the ocean, but it wasn't until, after I graduated, started my career, I joined Masters. And I thought I was going to just take a break for a while, but, I just craved swimming. I needed it. I took maybe a 6-month break and then joined Masters and Masters at UCSD. And Coach Sicky, his real name's Ron Marsikic. We call him Coach Sicky. He just made it fun. It was
Mm.
very different from competitive swimming in high school and college. He built a community, and with all of us, and he got us out swimming in the ocean. Every year we'd have the Sicky's Pier, Cove Pier Cove swim, and everybody be out there, and you could wear whatever you wanted, wetsuits, fins, paddles, just being out there. So he really got us there. And groups of us would then form little pods and go out. We always started from the cove and do swims from there, and it just became a regular Friday, usually a Friday morning and the weekend. um, just change it up from going to the pool.
Mm-hmm.
We'd swim out in the ocean. And then there were a lot of local, like events and races, 1 mile races, 3 mile races, the La Jolla rough water. So we
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of that. And that was a lot of fun. And the one year where I realized I could tolerate the cold, I think probably was my first 3 mile rough water, Cove Pier Cove, where
When is that?
that was, I want to say 1993.
Wow. Okay. And what month of the year is that? The rough. I feel like I know.
Oh, it's September, like
September. Okay.
weekend after Labor Day.
Okay.
And there'd be just tons of swimmers. And it was cold. It was in the low 50s. And I remember one swimmer, other friend of mine who had triathlon experience, she says, drink a lot of water the day before. Just,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're well. And so I did that. And, I was fine. And I think I got top 3 or first, or I won it because everybody else got pulled out because of
Oh.
the cold. Like, I mean, I guess, my husband was up there watching. He said, yeah, a lot of folks had to bail out. They got rescued by lifeguards to exit the
Wow.
swim. So I'm like, hey, um,
Didn't bother you at all? Did you think anything of it? Wow.
I didn't. I felt good. I'm like, this is fine, and I didn't feel cold, really cold. I don't remember feeling really cold afterwards.
Hmm.
And, so that always stuck with me. Every time, there's cold water, drink a lot beforehand, make sure you were well hydrated. Um, but also just little things you learn along the way, and knowing, just preparing for swimming in the open water and in the ocean is, I try to eat something beforehand to make sure things are working internally. And that kind of helps for me. This is my own personal belief. For me, it works, to just kind of warm up your core there, internally. And then you're kind of ready to go. And uh, certainly is, entering the cold water, just taking those deep breaths, um, and starting off fairly steady, and then things just kind of just warm up from the inside out.
Interesting. I'd never had thought that before. I love that. I'm curious, it just popped in my head. What did your mom think of this? Like, so you're going, you swim high school, like she obviously lets you, kind of get into the swimming world and then you start open water swimming. What does she think about that?
Well, she really didn't understand or recognize the open water swimming until, um, probably till I moved her down here to live in San Diego, which was about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Um, yeah, she didn't really understand it. I mean, I could talk to her about it. She was just like, Michella's just doing her thing down in San Diego. Um, and then when I did my swims and she got to see some video footage of them, did it actually click? And she realized, oh, that's what you do. Because in her world, swimming was in a pool. She did
Right.
not really swim open water. Her swimming was strictly the pool, training for the Olympics, all of that.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked. It's just, I just think it's an interesting thing. What like to have that to have, yeah, for her, to have that like in that. What was it? 70, like what Olympics did she go to?
56
56.
in
Yeah.
Melbourne. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So like swimming was different in 50s.
Right. Yeah, and she didn't even know where the English Channel was, so I had to do,
Hmm.
for instance, where these swims you know, were at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she asks about it every time now, though. She likes hearing about, did you swim in the pool? Did you swim in the ocean? Or even did you swim today? So, that's she's always asking now that she knows, what my world is about. So
Cool. For some reason, there's more questions about your mom popping in my head, but take us back
I
to,
know.
so you do the La Jolla rough water swim and you're find out you've got this cold comfort. So like you're fine in the cold. You've got these new little tricks that you've working for yourself to make yourself warm on the inside. Where does this cold comfort take you?
Well, I mean, it's I had a friend of mine Tom Hecker. He was always trying to get us to do long distance swimming because he was the one in our group that would do, the channel swims, and he would tell us about it. And we just thought, he's crazy, man. And crazy swimmer. And we train with him, because he'd always invite us. He had set up a really nice schedule, especially when he was doing laps back and forth. So we'd swim with him. And he was always trying to get us to do these longer swims. So finally, one year, I think I wanted to try it out. We were all going to Maui for the Maui Channel relay, and three of us said, "Hey, just off the cuff, let's just do a tandem solo, the three of us, unofficial." So we hired this guy that took us across, and I'm like, wow. I mean, those are warmer waters, of course, but as far as swimming the distance and swimming that length, it's 10-mile distance. I'm like, wow, this is really, I could keep going after we finished. It felt really good. I think I did worse on the relay, but as far as swimming directional, but as far as the solo swim, it was great. My poor husband, who was trying to feed all three of us, was the one who having a hard time, feeding the fish on the other side. But bless his heart, he promised he would never do that again. So I said, that's okay. So he doesn't ever go on my long swims. Um, and then after that, my friend Steve, who I had done that Maui crossing with, one of the friends I did it with, he asked me to be on his crew for his Catalina crossing.
Mm.
And so I went on that, and, you know, he had beautiful conditions, you know. So I'm like, oh, this looks great. So like, sign me up. So I could do this. um, so I signed up to swim Catalina and started training for that. And, of course, my vision or my visual of that swim was in these beautiful, smooth conditions. And of course, my swim wasn't so. You know, I remember taking the boat across, and um, I had all these people on my crew team. They were all, some of them were getting sick. They couldn't even help me get ready.
Oh,
And
wow.
so,
Wow.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. I had, my kayakers were all trying to get ready because it was as we were boating over to the start. I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels really bumpy. I could hardly sleep. And when you get to the cove part where you start, it's not as crazy until, of course, you get out more. And so that's what happened. And the captain was like, "Yeah, last night we took the swimmer out. He had great conditions." I'm like, "Okay," I'm getting all psyched up, and it was like complete opposite. Um, but in a sense, it was good, to have had those conditions, because I'm like, okay, it's not always going to be smooth sailing, and anything from here could either be the same or better. If it's worse, it's worse. But I know I could get through this. Of course, the first swim you do every rookie mistake. Like, you keep looking up thinking that's the land, and it's really just fog, and you're like, isn't it just right there? You
Right.
start asking how much further, and they all my support crew vowed, you don't tell them, you just keep encouraging. And but you know what, I said, I am not training for this again. I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to, this is a financial investment as well as an investment in time. I want to get there. My driving force was to have a seat at the table at the banquet, right? The annual banquet they have every year. I'm like, I want to be able to go. And so it's funny, these little things that you think about that keep you going. And yeah.
You started to tell us about it being bumpy and you got to the cove, but I feel like you missed the part where you made the rookie mistakes, but you didn't finish the first time that you were there.
I did finish.
Oh, you did.
I did
Okay.
finish. I did
Okay.
finish the swim, but it was a very. Oh, sorry, I jumped around. But it's a very rough swim because it's so exciting to talk about. um, it was a pretty rough swim, and I remember Dan Simonelli was my observer at the time,
Mhm.
and he saw when I was getting low. I was just I just needed to know. And I was out in the middle, and there's these currents, and they're like, Michelle, just keep going. You're going to let these currents are going to push you back. Um, I was, trying to swim on the right side of the boat where you're not getting the exhaust, all of that. And just going through the night swimming. And I was familiar with swimming in the night, so that wasn't too bad. Um, but then I remember Dan coming in the water with me, just jumping in and just saying, Michelle, it's 2 times to the pier and
Mm.
back.
Mhm.
So it gave me a good sense of what that distance is. So it's like, okay, just you're swimming to the cove and back twice. I'm like, okay. So I just put my head down and just kept going. And then at some point, the current did let up. It's like, okay, now we're moving, forward. And I truly did see the land. And you know, of course, I'm always thinking of things that make me nervous, which is like, okay, what if there's a whole bunch of rocks trying to get in,
Mhm.
Um, but it wasn't the case. I got in. My husband was there to greet me, and he's making sure, telling everybody, not that there were a lot of people, but there's a few. They're like, "Don't touch her! Don't touch her!" Like, let her be. So, it was great to have somebody looking out for you at the end.
Mhm. Yeah.
too. And then I'm like, okay. So it was great. It was just, there's no feeling, no other feeling like that, except for um, giving birth.
Right. Yes.
I always equate my long swims to going through labor.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Although I have to say, on a side note, my labor was fairly um, easy compared to my swims.
Right.
I was lucky in that regard. But, I was thinking, throughout the swim, I'm like, yeah, I mean, some people are going through pain much longer than this. I shouldn't be, I didn't, and the other driving force um, was knowing what a feeling to not finish or feel like you failed at something. um, is that, it's like people will always come up, oh, it's okay. You just kind of get that little pity party. I'm like, I don't want that. I can't, do that. I'm like, and I really thought, I'm like, I have no reason to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dying. I'm not suffering. I'm not, my arms are still there. My legs are still there. It's kind of that feeling you get in your gut sometimes when you're like, you just, you're contemplating giving up, and then you just keep going, and somehow the outlook changes, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's your crew doing something fun and special for you to distract you, or you see something in the water swim under you, whether you see the jellyfish, um, or just to keep you alert and awake, to distract you. um, But yeah, there's so many things that go through your head during these swims.
Yeah, people always say, what do you think about? It's like, well, what don't you think about? Because you kind of have time to think about everything.
Exactly. Yeah, I think about, relationships with people, with everyone in my family. I think about, my family members. I think about what I'd like to do, where I see myself in the future. Just there's so many things you can think about.
How was your landing? I feel like Catalina can be tricky. I've heard a few people talk about being like dragged back out. Did you get a good landing?
There was a little bit of pushback, but um, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I was able to get in. There were a few rocks, but nothing that I would, stumble upon. Um, yeah, it was a little bit, but not too bad. You
Hmm.
know, um, so I was happy for that. I mean, like, thank God, because everything else was, with the currents um, and the chop and all that it was nice to have at least something that didn't, hinder you from progressing forward.
Right there to the finish. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've this amazing feeling of accomplishment. You get to attend the banquet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where does this feeling of accomplishment take you?
Well, the biggest thing is the confidence that it gave me, at that time, and even moving forward. Um, I didn't tell too many people about at work about it, because I always kept work and swimming very separate. And I didn't want, because to me, swimming was my personal thing, and work was stressful, and it's like I didn't want the two to ever mix, because I liked being myself, being my own boss per se, or not having to follow anybody else's decisions, to be my thing, because you get so much of that at work where, you know, um, depending on, who's leading the crew, you're living or you're doing somebody else's goals per se, you're having
Hmm.
to meet somebody else's goals. And I didn't like that. I liked having a space where I had my own goals, um, and where I set the pace. So not a lot of people at work knew about it, but somehow word leaked out, and I got back in the office. And the time I was managing a group in engineering, and they had they had put all sorts of banners and congratulations on my, the window and the door to my office. And I'm like, wow, that was really cool. And one of the engineers had done a whole research on the whole Catalina swim.
Oh,
And so
wow.
he knew about it. And so I would say that was special, and I think in some regard, I think people kind of looked at me differently than that.
Mm. Hmm. Interesting.
It's just like there's more to her than a boss or an employee or whatever, because I really didn't share so much about that. People knew I swam,
Yeah.
but I didn't really tell them too much about what I was going to do until like maybe the day before. I'm going to be off for the next couple of days because I'm doing this.
Yeah. Interesting. So did it change your work world at all? You said you people looked at you a little differently.
Yeah, I think for me, it gave me the confidence because I was one that I'm just a person that doesn't always have confidence. It's like I'm always, I doubt sometimes my abilities and I know it's there. But sometimes, somebody will say something or you read something or whatever. And I'm like, gosh, am I here where I should be? Am I doing the right? So in some regards, it gave me that bit of confidence. Um, and I know there's a saying that I always think about, is to do something that scares you a little bit every day to help build
Hmm.
up your confidence. Provide, and anytime there's like a safe space to do that, I take advantage of that. Whether it's going through the caves in the cove area where it's like, oh, okay, something a little scary, you know, or talking to somebody new. Sometimes it's hard to like open up a conversation and that, just to keep the confidence building. Um, but I also equate a lot of, difficult times, you know, with that swim. I can get through some difficult times. If I got through that, I can get through these other difficult swims or tasks, or what have you. Yeah. And it helped to talk to people because, you know, um, my group would come and ask me about it because a lot of them were also triathletes or runners,
Mm-hmm.
or it got them to set goals.
Nice.
That's actually the part that I liked about it because they're like, okay, you know, um, they wanted to know time management, how to, you know, do your sport, do your thing, and work, and or be a mom or be a dad, in balancing family, your athletic sport and work. How do you balance all three? So it wasn't just about the swim, but it was all about that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're inspiring people.
Yeah, and you don't realize it
Hmm.
until it happens. And you stop and go, okay, this is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me just to hear you reflect on it, just that, like, you didn't initially share that kind of part of yourself. But then, once people found out, like, oh my gosh, I think I can identify with it so much just because felt like I was really, yeah, like my work life and swim life were so independent of one another. Yeah, so it just really really resonates with me. But it's interesting, we forget, just with that little lack of confidence, we forget how just the sharing and being our authentic self, like in all those settings, like how you can learn it and grow together and inspire people to get out of their shell. And so it's cool though that you're able to have that impact on people. That's awesome.
I'm like, okay, this is fun, and then folks are like, can you, give a talk about it,
Mm.
or like an inspirational talk about it, or I want to see the show or the video footage of what this looked like. Because again, it wasn't something at that time. I don't think anybody in my company ever knew about or did. Um, I know a lot of people were runners, a lot of people were triathletes, but not really swimmers to that capacity.
Hmm.
And so it was
Yeah.
kind of foreign to them. And they kind of wanted to know about it, some did. And So it was definitely fun to share. And, for my daughters at the time, they're both swimmers as well. Definitely that was a criteria to teach them from an early age.
Nice.
And they both have, they both were, they're both are still very athletic. And, my younger daughter, was swimming on swim team at that point. And, some of the kids found out about it. They're like, can you help us? We want to do a relay across Catalina. And I'm like, okay. They're like, can you help us sign up and how to go all about it? So I think it was a year or 2 years after that swim, I got to organize, help them and talk to their coaches and, come up with, their training plan. Really, they were good enough with, strong enough swimmers to do it, being on the swim team, working out every day. They just needed to be familiar with swimming out in the ocean. And so we made it a really big, fun deal for them. We had them night swimming, and we had like some of the master swimmers come out with them to swim at
Wow.
nighttime.
That's so cool.
Um, and it was so much fun. And one of the dads did a bio on all of them, um, and they did their swim, and they had talk about pristine conditions when they did their swim.
Nice.
And I was kayaking for them, and it was great. They enjoyed it. My daughter was on that team, and she just got stung by the
Mm.
jellies.
Oh
But
man.
it was, she was a trooper, and they were all troopers. They got out there, were so excited. Their coaches were actually on the boat, watching them swim, and
Hmm.
so it was fun. It was great because they also, they were able to give most motivational talks to,
Yeah.
they did a presentation,
Neat.
and, I'm hoping it stuck with them. And, we
Yeah.
made sure that they sent out all the thank you notes. They got interviewed by media. So they had a lot of fun doing that.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
you kicked that off by starting doing it yourself.
And then we did the moms of the relay. We all did a
Nice.
relay together.
That's awesome. I love
and,
that.
then, and then that was the following year. Then the following year after that, my daughter, Mia, my youngest daughter, she's like, she and her friend Eloise were like, we want to swim across Catalina. I'm like, okay, you have to check with your coaches
Yeah.
because it's much more than just relay, because you're going to have to put in some long swims, which I know can change your strokes and your technique, and it's very different than
Mm.
racing in the pool, right?
Hmm.
But I remember my daughter at that stage in her life was like, you know, I need a confidence boost at this point in my life. I'm like, okay. So she and her friend Eloise, they stuck together. They swam in tandem,
Oh, cool.
across Catalina. I remember sometimes, I could see my daughter's face, just some of the things that are going through her head. And she was wearing dark goggles, so I couldn't really see her crying, but she,
Hmm.
like afterwards. But there in no way would she have ever wanted to quit. I
Yeah.
just know her. This was something they did and set out to do, um, and it was, at the end, it was really just kind of, I love that more than my own swim. Just like
Mm.
it was fun, to celebrate with them and see their joy. I think they were 16 and 17 at the time, doing that swim.
That's amazing. But I feel like your journey didn't end after Catalina. Where did you go next?
No, well, it took me a while to, because Tom was always, again, Tom was like, what are you going to do your next swim? I'm like, well, I got to wait till I'm retired. I have all these things that I need to do. And I was in a job that I was traveling, quite a bit. And I'm like, I need to be in a spot where, I can actually train. And, so it wasn't until like 8 years later. It always takes somebody to really plant the seed. My friend Amber was like, hey, I'm going to do the English Channel. Want to do it too? I'm like, okay. So, so we trained together, because the thought of being able to train with somebody was really, really nice. And I just say, during the times when I would do some of these longer swims and longer training swims, it was always with guys. I mean, nothing wrong with that. But I really missed that female companionship of being able to swim with other women and being able to sit and have a dedicated schedule. Hey, we're going to meet here and go do this. And, um, because in the industry that I was working, it was all, mostly male. And I'm like, I just need female company. And to be able to swim with somebody would be great. And slowly, I was, especially training for the English Channel, I met more and more women who would come out and train and swim. I'm like, finally. So it was great to develop some new friendships. My friend Annika in particular, just, met her, later in life and we become, really good friends. She came and supported my English Channel swim during pandemic. Um, but, I trained for English Channel. It took me a year and a half. I trained it, seriously for a year and a half. My friend Amber and I did around Coronado as our qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, we just kept training. And then the pandemic hit. And I said, I'm going to take my chances. I'm just going to keep going as though, with the hopes that things are going to be better at that time. It was scheduled for June of 2021. My friend Amber, she said, I really, at this time, it's time to start a family. So she's going to reschedule for some other time in the future. But, I thank her for just like really encouraging me and just getting me on the path to setting that as a goal. So I just kept going. And then, of course, I just kept, reading about other people swimming during pandemic. It was nice that, yes, our oceans closed for a while. Um, and, I had, there was a group of us that would do our little sneaky swims. Um, like 4:35 in the morning when it was dark, we'd head out to the cove. Shh, don't tell anybody. Okay, so we'd go to the cove, we'd kind of step over the fence, the gate, and one by one we'd get in the water. We didn't even put our lights on. But it
Oh,
was a
wow.
time we had red. I remember we had red tide at the time, so we could see, the bioluminescence. So
Wow.
that was cool. And it was kind of eerie because it was very quiet, and we would just go one at a time, like we'd leave 5 minutes apart and we'd all sneak back out, for, we'd have light. And, it's like, it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of fun breaking the law a little bit. But like, whew. Looking back on it now, of course, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that was really silly. But my daughters were like, because we were all together in the house and they'd be like, Mom, you're going to get caught. It's $1,000 fine. I'm like, I'm going to take my chances. So it was fun. And, it was like um, this big secret. But, that kept us going. And then, the pool opened and Siki was great because he was very creative in how he got folks back into the pool. We had 20 lanes and, two to a lane, and he had individual workouts at the end of the pool.
Wow.
So he got us in, slowly and it really built that up. So it was great to actually be able to go to the pool again, just to get the technique down and doing some speed work and then also the ocean. But I realize now that I probably overtrained for the English Channel.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a point when I was doing really well, and then just because I was so nervous, I wanted to make sure that I could, last through it. And I realized when I signed up for June that the water temperature was going to be pretty low.
Mm,
And I don't know what I was thinking, but I said, "Oh, there's a spot open," which is usually reserved for relays. But
right.
I took it, and you know, um, luckily the cove and the training conditions were perfect for that. We had a cold winter. We had a lot of, mid to high 50s, sometimes dipped into like 52 training. So that really actually helped. So when English Channel came, I had to be there for 3 weeks because we had to quarantine. And my friend Annika, she joined. Originally I had like a team of 4 or 5 people coming with me, but then cut that down to Annika joined me. And then my daughter Mia came. She had a break from school. She was flying in from Boston. So she came. And those two were my crew. And that's where I also met my friend Catherine Stefanuti, who, she was very instrumental in like really making me feel at home. And she had good connections with the boat captain, Eddie Spelling. So, she would work with him. Because she just has great connections and very nice demeanor. So she knew how to like get them to, you know, talk more about when's the swim going to happen. And so it kept getting pushed out because the conditions would be good. And realizing that, the conditions have to be good, get there and be able to come back. So I didn't really understand that because we were swimming in Dover in the harbor there. And I'm like, oh, these look smooth. Why aren't we going out today?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, well, this is the harbor, right? You don't know what's beyond the walls there. And, Catherine was great about explaining all that to me. And so finally, we had like 2 days left of my window.
Oh, wow.
So I was getting really nervous. And um, I called Eddie. I said, Eddie, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be safe. Because he didn't know my swimming abilities, and I said, just as long as it's safe, I'm good. So and also, my friend Abby Fairman from back home would really just mentally talk to me because, we heard about the Dover coaster and the
Mm-hmm.
emotions you get. You're going to go, you're not going to go, you're going to go, you're going to. So, it was the full window. I had been there 2.5 weeks already. So,
Wow.
and he says,
Yeah.
okay, we have an 18-hour window tomorrow. So I'm like, let's go. So what was nice about my window of time is that I got to start at 6 a.m. and it was solstice. So I
Nice.
had the longest day of the year. And, it started out pretty calm. I had really nice conditions pretty much all the way through. During the center middle area, it got foggy. And then the last 3 miles is where, that 18-hour window was starting to close. Um, and But, I just put my head down and swam, and the temperature of the water ranged between 54 and 59
Oh,
for that
wow.
crossing.
Wow.
It's great because there was, the hot water on the boat was wonderful to just help, warm me up. I just pour it in the back of my neck. Um, my crew members, I think the only thing they remember me being snarky about was telling him, I want more FaceTime. I wanted to see their faces.
Yeah.
And it's really helped because they give me a rash after that, like FaceTime. Like, yes, I want to see your faces.
Yeah.
So, and then I remember, the last 3 miles, I was supposed to swim right next to the boat and the currents were pushing me. I couldn't get close enough. And I remember Annika just like, you're really getting angry at me. Like, get in here. I'm like, I'm trying. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see one of the boat crew, Michael, head to the back of the boat towards the dinghy. And I'm like, am I almost there? Because I remember my friend Steve telling me he had Eddie for a captain too. He says that the last 500, they get to the dinghy and they take you in. Like, is he? And oh my gosh, the leap of joy in my heart when I saw him get to that dinghy. And I'm like, I'm there. And what was going through my head was, I think it was Frida Streeter who coined it, swim till your, I'll say bits, till you hit the sand, swim till your bits hit the sand, right? And sure enough, I kept swimming and I landed on a beautiful beach in Bissau.
Wow.
And my friend Catherine had arranged for Stephen Art to meet me with his partner, and they were there. They greeted me. I didn't expect this at all, but it was such a joyous couple that greeted me on the beach, the video footage, pictures, everything. And
Wow.
they got my, souvenir rock. And that swim is definitely my most memorable swim. And that was really only 2 or 3 channels into it. I didn't really set out for Triple Crown or Ocean 7 or anything. I'm just like, I'm just going to take these one at a time. Um, and so that was, I love that swim for that reason. It was just so, because of all the emotion and just how it turned out. And because the whole time I'm thinking he's going to stop me because my window's closing. But,
Mm.
he saw that I was doing it, head down, going in, and um, you know, definitely coming back was more of an adventure on that boat.
Yeah.
Um, it took us 9 hours to head back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there were some fuel issues with the engine
Oh,
that
goodness.
Eddie had really tried his darndest to to fix. And but he his commitment. His commitment was to get me across, which he did, and he got us back, safely. Um, and so I'm really really happy about that. Yeah, it took 9 hours to get back.
Wow.
Like I kept thinking to myself, and of course that 18-hour window had closed, and we were sloshing around in the middle of that channel.
Oh, man.
And I remember Mia just holding on to me so I wouldn't roll off the bunk, and just that feeling of nauseousness. I'm like, can you do the swim? And it just, continues. But, when we
Yeah.
got back, it was like when we finally, got back safe and sound, it was almost exactly 24 hours from when we left.
Oh, wow.
Um, it was, yeah, it was then it was just like, we slept hard. And woke up and had bangers and mash for dinner. Hit the spot.
I'm curious though, you talked so beautifully about the confidence that you got from the first swim. So then you go and you do it again. What's your feeling after, doing it twice? More confidence or different confidence because it's a more renowned channel, like what is what is that like on the inside?
The same, if not more. It also
Mm-hmm.
felt, just a lot of confidence because at this point in my career, I'd been working for my company for 31 years, and I
Mm.
was managing a different group that I never got to meet as a group because, again, the job that I was in at that time, it was intended to travel. I was an operations manager, and I was supposed to travel, by car all over the Western United States. And my team, um, we always met on Zoom, on video, and didn't ever have an opportunity to bring them together as a team. But we'd share about this, and I did tell them, shortly before I did this Zoom, that this is where I'm going to be. And I was, the 3 weeks there, I was working, before having just changed up our schedules, and everything was. I mean, it was you had to be on the clock pretty much all the time. Um, so when they heard about it, you know, they were they were equally inspired. One of my team is like, yeah, I'm going to be riding. I think he was doing a pretty like 100K mountain bike ride or something that he had signed up for. He goes, you really inspired me. So again, it was cool to be able to like inspired. I wouldn't say anything, but then we'd meet with customers, and at the end of our meetings, somebody would say, "Oh, by the way, do you know she swam the English Channel?" And then become this whole conversation. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't, and people get interested. And actually, one of our customers said, "Hey, look, can you come out and give a motivational speech,
Mm.
talk to our sales team?" And so I put one together, and it's fun because it actually helped with my presentation skills because we always had to do that. Or part of our jobs is to do that. Was to do presentations, and when you're talking about something you're super excited about and passionate about, it just all comes through. And they always had lots of questions, and it was that was a lot of fun. I had fun
Yeah.
doing that. And
Yeah.
yeah, but but I would have to say what that swim really triggered, because again, it was like, okay, it was a point in my career. I'm like, okay, I'm not 100% happy. Not
Mm.
they have to be 100% happy, but I don't feel like I am going anywhere. If I was feeling kind of stuck, and I'm like, So I've done this, this, and this, and this. And I always promised myself that I was not going to bruise my head trying to break through the glass ceiling.
Ah.
Um, and so I said, it's time. I am not going to wait for anybody to tell me to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Unfortunately, in the industry that I'm in, or maybe this could apply to other industries, I've been with a company for 32 years. Once you reach your 50s, even though you really work through it, you went through your career having kids, balancing your life, you doing everything that they, tell you to do, checking all the boxes. Something about being a woman in your 50s can kind of, it, I don't know, either they lose confidence in you or something. But I was like, my kids were in college. I'm like, I'm ready to give it my all.
Mm-hmm.
And and nobody was taking. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
fine. You know, I'll channel my passions and my skills elsewhere. So I retired. I had enough years to retire, had all the everything lined up to do so. And
Mm-hmm.
I also recalled a goal that I had said to myself when I first started my career that I wanted to retire in my mid 50s. I'm like, well, shoot, here I am.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And so I did. And it was all, um, I would say, certainly a lot of thinking about that went and through my head during the channel swim. Um, so I had planned it all out. And yeah, and it's, no regrets about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's allowed me or has enabled me to, I started, coaching masters, and Siki was like, "Are you ready to coach?" I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, let's do it." So
Nice.
it's fun because it's like it's really a once a week commitment, but we cover for each other. There's a team of us coaches that coach in the evenings, and it was a fun way to get to know um, the swimmers, from that side of the pool deck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Having had done the channels a lot, the swims, there was that element of trust and confidence in me, which was great. Um, and anybody wanting to do long swims, they talk with them about it,
Mm-hmm.
encourage them to do it. So because they knew that I had that experience, which is fun. It's a nice way to continue that goal or that journey or that adventure is to share it with other people. So that's been fun. I do that as my
Mm-hmm.
retirement job, and I've been retired for like 4 years now, and it's been great because I also teach swimming to sixth graders at the charter school down the street from UCSD. That's a lot of fun. Um, and a great way to learn new terminology, what their language is these days. Um,
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun. Just being able to do more of what I love to do and to coach it, to teach it, to um, relearn it also.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, I knew I'd overtrained for the English Channel because I saw my speed and strength kind of go on a decline. I um, just continued to swim through a lot of that and just, and then my friend Kelly said, "Hey, want to swim at this is again, like it was in 2022. I'm like, okay. And we were all about saving money. So we're like, hey, let's do it. Let's do a tandem. And she
Right.
and I were at the same speed at the time we started. And then she got stronger
Mm.
and did it. But she was so, so patient with me. She's like, Michella, we're doing this together. And we swam around Manhattan, and you know, she's taken off and done a lot of her swims, but it was so nice to have done that with her. And we stuck together. And we did a night swim around Manhattan, and she would pop up, she'd pop up and look around, and oh, that's that, and that's that. And it was just, all the lights were out. For me, it was like, just go. let's just go. And
Yeah.
I wish I would have stopped and really taken the time to really enjoy that
Mm.
more.
Mhm.
Um, but certain parts of my shoulders were hurting or whatever, and I'm like, I really need to get this over with. Um, and I kept running into my kayaker too, so that was really
Oh,
fun.
goodness.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
but when the finish came, my gosh, it came fast. It was like, oh, okay, there it is. And it was fun because we celebrated. I got my little crown, and she really made it very special for me.
Oh,
Um,
that's lovely.
and so that was fun. And then we both um, signed up for the distance of Tahoe, Lake
Mm.
Tahoe. So we
Mhm.
both did it. We both did that separately a couple months later. And that's when I knew I really needed to change my stroke
Yeah.
because, number one, it's a lake swim, right? So
Mm.
there's no salt. And
Mhm.
I found myself working so hard on my feeds because I didn't have that buoyancy.
Mhm.
But I also thought, in your repertoire of different swims, you should try out different elements, salt, non-salt, heavy salt, whatever. And I had such beautiful conditions, and just all around. But again, because my shoulder was in such pain, I didn't enjoy it.
Mm. Mhm.
And by the end, the last few miles, my friend Abby's like, Michelle, you were swimming vertically.
Oh, yeah.
It was a vertical finish. I'm like, oh. Um, so needless to say, I went and got my shoulder checked out, and sure enough, I had a torn rotator cuff. So I said,
Mhm.
okay, I've got to fix this if I want to continue. And I had already signed up for a round Jersey swim, and I was really excited about that swim. But I knew I didn't want to do it in pain. I wanted to enjoy
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
and so I had my surgery done exactly a year before I was finished. So I gave myself a year to heal, recover, and get in enough shape to do that swim. And just really tried to focus on longer strokes, keeping my head down. A friend of mine had talked to me about some of the techniques used in total immersion swimming. So I was trying to implement that without really getting formally coached. I would just make sure my shoulders were feeling good, having also Coach Sicky look at my stroke. And I started training based on time versus
Mm.
distance
Mhm.
because with around Jersey, it's 41 miles. You can't train for miles for that type of swim because it's a current assist and you're not gonna swim it any longer than the tide shifts. So I was banking on a 12-hour swim. I said, okay, I'm gonna train based on time. And so that was a whole different method and way of thinking of training. And I realized I loved that. I really liked training for time. I trained more by myself for that swim. Um, and, you know, um, which was fine. And I don't even feel like because it was such a gradual training process, I don't feel like I overtrained at all. As a matter of fact, I think it was just the right amount. And when I did that swim, I enjoyed it. I actually
Nice.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I did enjoy elements of the others, but as far as being able to stop and smell the roses for as much as I could, because I had to stay with the current, of course.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I had Catherine and Annika supporting the boat. They made it so much fun. I had a really good captain, good pilot, and when I finished the swim, I'm like, wow, this was great. My shoulder felt good. And I said, I need to keep this up. I need to
Mm.
be able to swim this way without shoulder pain. And I needed more of it. That's when Catherine had told me about swim mastery and, swimming with her hand. Just take a look at it. And that's, I did more research on it. And then, because I started to feel the pain in my shoulder come back. I'm like, this can't be happening. I don't
Right.
want this
Yeah.
ever again.
Mhm.
So I went to, the camp, Tracy's camp, where I met you,
Mhm.
and just wow, just blew me away, just opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, I can keep doing this. And um, and I love just the, training based on time, really distance. And yeah, it's so unfortunately I am now off because I had, foot surgery. I'm off for the
Mhm.
next 12 weeks. It was like I got this little blip. It was like an amuse bouche. I'm like, I really want more, of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I'm looking forward to going back and, again, getting more of that training in that manner, and then using the new techniques. Um, and always room for improvement. So definitely.
It's the biggest gift I think that I've gotten from, I mean, there's so many, but like just really thinking of the lifelong learning, which it doesn't, I mean, I don't think I've ever thought of myself as closed-minded or shut down or like that I was, limiting myself, but it's really interesting when the technique complements the desire to understand your capacity the way that like we do is kind of the like I think of, I don't know. I could go on about it, but anyway, it was so amazing to meet you in Loretto, and really, really, really appreciate you sharing your story with us, Michella. Thank you so much.
Thank you.